Hi, I'm David Hackoff, Executive Director of NewFest, and I'm so thrilled to welcome you to this panel discussion around We're Here. We hope you enjoyed the first 2 episodes of the show. We are so thrilled to be partnering once again with HBO. We love working with HBO. They have so much incredible queer content, including this show, which is a really special show. This is one of several panels that we have at the festival this year, the New York LGBTQ Film Festival. We also have more than 130 films that are available to watch throughout Manhattan and Brooklyn in theaters and virtually throughout the US. So we hope you visit newfest.org to find out everything else that's happening at the festival. Right now, I am so thrilled to welcome our moderator for this conversation, Ryan A. Mitchell, who is a host and commentator and an all-around fabulous person. Take it away, Ryan.
Well, thank you very much. I don't know if I deserve all that, but I'm most definitely going to take it because I'm a Leo. My name is Ryan A. Mitchell, and I'm very honored and excited to be here to chat about one of my favorite all-time shows that honestly just keeps the tears coming. We're Here on HBO. Let's jump right in because there's so much to talk about. I would love to introduce the wonderful cast, co-creators, and producers. They are joining us right now. Bob the Drag Queen, what's up? Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, I'm really happy to be here. Thank you so much for having us, and I'm always thrilled to talk about this amazing, remarkable, and wonderful show that the team has put together.
Oh yeah, we're going to get into some things. Eureka O'Hara, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me, Ryan. It's always a pleasure to see you. You look beautiful.
Oh, thank you. You too. Shangela, what's up, Queen? How are you? Not you muted.
Ta-da. Hallelujah.
Ta-da, hallelujah.
Hi, Queen. Oh, my God. All right. Johnnie Ingram and Stephen Warren, both co-creators of the show. What a wonderful job y'all have done.
Oh, thank you for having us. Thank you. We're here.
And we are talking with everyone. So we're excited.
And then, of course, last but not least, Peter LoGreco, the executive producer. I'm so excited to talk to you.
Thank you so much for having me. So happy to be here. Yeah.
Okay, so let's get this started. I really want this conversation to feel natural and just flow. And I think the thing that is on everyone's mind is the logistics on how y'all pulled this off in the middle of a pandemic, right? And so I'm going to start off with Johnnie and Stephen and then go to Peter, because I would love to know what it was like when you got that call about season 2 and the safety procedures that were kind of put in during the pandemic. Stephen, go for it. How was it for you?
Number one, we were absolutely thrilled that the first season was received so positively and wonderfully, and it had the impact that we didn't even expect it could have. And then to get the second season was, magic for all of us. We were all, waiting on pins and needles, and it was thrilling. Then COVID happened, and that in the middle of shooting the 6th episode of our first season in Spartanburg, we unfortunately had to shut down. And that, as Bob says, we had to make it work. And that we wound up doing the 6th episode last season completely virtually. Everyone had to fly home from Spartanburg, and we had to figure out, what are we going to do? And we came up with something that I think, for those of you who have seen, turned out to be very, very special and meaningful, especially the video at the end that we put together.
And thank you. I mean, I think especially to Peter, I think helped us really navigate and learn a whole new way of storytelling, which is kind of similar to what we're seeing here in these little boxes, and the ability to, thoughtfully, completely pivot from the real world into the real world we were all experiencing, and tell such thoughtful, amazing stories about, how our wonderful cast have come to be so amazing and wonderful. And I think it was such an extraordinary feat under such crazy circumstances, but also really managed to, get those heartstrings going. And I think really got to know Bob, Shangela, and Eureka on a whole different level.
Yeah, Peter, it seems like you were the mastermind of some sorts of trying to figure it all out. What mode did you jump into, being like, okay, we have to do this. This is the time to get to know the queens even better?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I think we all collaborated, and honestly, Bob, Shangela, and Eureka were all part of this as well, and their willingness to participate and open up in a different way than they had in the other 5 episodes of the show. But, I mean, in some ways it harkens back just to trying to get into documentary storytelling in its most simple form, which is to understand and spend time with and kind of step into someone's experience. And this gave us an opportunity to go deeper into Bob, Shangela, and Eureka's stories and talk a little bit about stuff that they had always hinted at with each of the drag children over the course of the season prior to that. Oh, I went through this. Oh, this happened to me. Oh, I understand that. And I think for all of us, we had a personal thirst for more, to learn more about what they were talking about, what they were referring to. So we just hoped and assumed that the audience would as well. And I mean, fortunately, it seemed to work out. At the end of the day, I think if someone really gives you a piece of themselves and their heart, it can be as simple as a box on a screen like this and still transfer over a lot of emotion and a lot of feeling and be very effective. And, it was also timely, right? It was that was the moment we were in. Talking to Johnnie and Steve and their conception of doing something with the music video at the end was a lovely way to bring it together and still do a big, kind of drag extravaganza, which is something that's such a part of the DNA of the show. So it was, it was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, but also a lot of happy accidents and just, necessity being the mother of invention. And all of us, I think, putting our experience to work in a different way. But yeah, I feel very proud of that. I think we all do that episode.
No, everyone should be proud of this season and how you were all able to pivot so easily. I want to know from the ladies, though, the queens, were y'all nervous to get back out there? Because the pandemic, it took a toll on us all, right? And I would love to know, Bob, what were you thinking? Were you nervous about going back into these small towns?
So the short answer is yes. When we got shut down in Spartanburg, I was nervous to fly home. I was in the airport choking on an M&M, afraid to cough. It was that bad. I was I was like, I'm afraid of anything. And then we also filmed this season. Let me try now. I'm come from the world of either scripted television or reality TV that we film in 2 months. So this was 10 months. To film this. And that was because of all the precautions that we were taking to make sure that everyone was being as safe as humanly possible. And in the beginning, it was pretty scary. And of course, because it was over the course of 10 months, things got more and more laxed, or people, the vaccination happened. A lot happened throughout the course of the filming. And I think you can really see that from episode to episode.
Yeah, Shangela, what about your experience? How was it jumping back in there?
Well, there was a certain level of uncertainty with it, but I'm going to tell you, after sitting at the house for a good almost year, I was so excited to have the opportunity to get back to work. I wrote a song called Working Girl. I come to work. I love to work. And so for us to have this opportunity to go back out there and to tell these stories again, that was a huge thing to me, because I knew that we had so much magic that we had created with this team in the first season with the people that we worked with. And there were more stories that deserved to be told. And so I was so thrilled that we've got a chance to go back out there and tell these stories again. And so thankful to HBO and IPC and everyone involved with the show in helping make sure that the precautions were put in place so that we could get back to work.
Yeah, Eureka, what about you? Do you have anything to add to your experience of this moment?
No, I was excited to get back to work. Of course, I love to work. I've always been that personality. So when we were shut in our homes and not really able to get out, and I'm a super social person, I love to hug. But there was a lot of restrictions on all those things, even coming back to work with We're Here. But we were so blessed to have just a really strong crew and a really powerful minded COVID team that made sure we were safe, even when it might have gotten annoying on a time or two where we had to put our masks on. They were on top of everyone. The safety is really what made me feel comfortable, because we did have people really put in the extra effort to make sure everyone was abiding and there was space in between. And it was different, but we were able to do it. And it luckily didn't take away from the experience with the drag daughters. It somewhat made it even maybe more special, which was cool, because everyone needed those intimate moments and that socializing, but through a safe way where everyone could feel comfortable. So we did a really good job at doing that. I think you'll get to see when you watch the episodes.
If
I
anything,
mean,
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Sorry.
The safety protocols made it, more difficult to be, the people from out of town in town, because we were the only ones wearing masks. So, we're going to places that are very conservative and tend to have different information on, what it is that's happening in the world. And I think, we're resistant to that protocol. And so as we walked around town, it was practicing our COVID safety. You could easily spot who was in town on We're Here, on the We're Here show filming. So that was it was very interesting, to be sort of spotted like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, let's talk about the choices of towns you all decided to go to this season, because I mean, we all saw Selma and Del Rio. What went into that, Stephen? Did y'all know where y'all wanted to go? Were the queens involved in producing where they want to go? I always love to know this process. What goes into that?
I have to tell you, we came up, when we conceived of the show to begin with, we came up in our heads with many different scenarios of what we wanted to try to experiment and see what would happen in different places. And then Peter joined us very shortly after we created the show, and he had his ideas, and then all of our 3 stars had their ideas. Selma, I have to tell you, is Peter. Peter had a particular affinity of saying, I want to tell the story in Selma. And that, we are so grateful to him for saying, I know that something special will happen here. And I think this episode is so important, and it touches me so deeply, because I've never seen a story of intersectionality, the story of intersectionality of all of our civil rights, whether you're Black, queer, trans, any civil right, portrayed in such a powerful and accessible manner. But Peter, I mean, why don't you tell us about Selma? Like, what was yours?
Please, I would love to know.
Well, I mean, I think in general, Steve just said it, I think trying to build from season 1 of the things that I think we all found remarkable and a little bit, maybe more impactful than we even might have guessed ahead of time, was this idea of intersectionality, was this idea that there are multiple identities that we all kind of hold within us. And LGBTQ is obviously an important and sort of core aspect of what we're doing on this show. But there are queer people who are Native American, like we did in Farmington. There are queer people of color. There are queer people who, identify in all these different ways. And there are communities that have identities that sort of represent very specific groups. And Selma was just one of those places that felt like there was such an opportunity to explore the intersectionality Steve was talking about. And I think, in general, that was one of the earlier places we talked about doing and looking into in this season. And it kind of sparked in the desire to find that in as many of the communities over the course of the season that we could, So, in terms of the process, it was one of the more difficult places to develop a show, I think partially because, there's a lot of suspicion, and justifiably so, and a lot of just people who were not necessarily sure what it was we were after, because it's a place that does hold such an important part in our nation's history and history of the civil rights movement. But as I hope we communicate to some degree in the show, as a community itself is very much a small rural town, in the sense that it's been left behind, in the sense that it's a predominantly Black place in a state that still suffers from a lot of racism and bigotry, is struggling economically, culturally, and in other ways. And so to sort of build the trust up necessary to be able to go in there and do this work was something that was a bit of a challenge, but also, I think hopefully really gratifying for everyone. Certainly it was for me and some other key members of the crew. And it's, in its own way, a beautiful place.
I would also argue that something happened in Selma while we were filming there that bonded all of us as a crew, as the cast, with the drag kids, with the town. Something changed while we were in Selma, and that it elevated, I think, everything we've done subsequent to Selma. something clicked.
Yeah. No, I have to agree. I think while watching the episode, I got chills. Because I think you put it perfectly earlier, Steve, when you said the word intersectionality, and Bob and Shangela, this was a powerful episode, and we saw Bob have a really emotional moment. And I would love to know, as you know, Black queer people, you both were just so emotional in this moment. Can you talk about your experience and how that history really sticks with you? Bob, what about you?
You know, so we met with this wonderful woman named Miss A. Free, who runs the Culture Center in Selma, Alabama. And she introduced us to some foot soldiers who were there on Bloody Sunday, specifically Miss Lowry, who I'm still in contact with. I actually really like that lady a lot. She's really, really sweet. And, you know, it was something she said that actually it didn't make the final cut. Part of it was in there. She talked a little bit about her experience on Bloody Sunday being attacked by the police officers. And then she was saying that in another interview somewhere else, she had seen never before seen footage of her of the bridge of the attack on the bridge. And she saw a young girl being beaten up by the cops and running into tear gas, and it was her. And she had literally never seen this footage. She's seen it for the first time after like decades, dozens and dozens of years. She saw footage of herself being brutalized. And then it put a lot into perspective for me, and I had a lot of appreciation for what this woman has gone through, and everyone else who I hadn't had a chance to sit down with on camera and have them tell their story. People who didn't make it to the year 2021, people who didn't make it to the year 2000, people who didn't make it out of the 1800s, who never saw freedom, who sacrificed everything from freedom to literally their lives, so that I could be here talking to you today. And that really resonated with me. And there was some survivor's guilt that I was feeling, and it was pretty tough, to be honest.
I mean, wow. I just appreciated your vulnerability in ways, and I could tell everyone was just supporting you in that moment. Shangela, what was your experience?
Well, you know, our show has really awesome high moments of joy and celebration and love. And this show also is a real life docuseries. It's a reflection of what's really going on in people's lives in the real world, real people telling their real stories. And in a lot of those stories, there's a lot of pain. And seeing any type of pain, you know, anyone who has a heart, you're going to feel something. And watching, you know, Bob in that moment go through that, you know, those feelings of pain. I know that Eureka and I both, you know, being connected as we are, we were feeling for him in that moment, but we were also feeling something ourselves as well. And I think that a big part of that for me was, you know, the fact that these women, the foot soldiers, were able to go back and tell us their stories of pain and their instances of trauma, and how their experience was so, it was, you know, hard and difficult, and it was a reflection of what was going on in our world at the time. But also I felt so grateful that they would give us that window into their lives, that they would be so vulnerable and so open with us. And it gave me this great sense of like, of greater purpose in that moment, if you will. I felt like, wow, if these women can work through that type of trauma to the place where they can go back and revisit it and share these memories and this historic moment with us, then we have a purpose to continue to showcase and amplify these stories through this show. We have a purpose, even in our personal lives, to tell the story that it happened, that people are able to, you know, experience it, and they fought for what was right, and they lived to tell the story. And now we must continue to tell that story. It also gave me hope, because these women did not want us to continue to be labored with the pain, but they wanted us to push forward and work for change in the future. And I'm just really proud to be a part of, you know, a moment right now where we are working toward that change.
It was something really remarkable to be a part of too, and the fact that, like, I'm constantly reminded of the things that happened on that Sunday in Selma, Alabama, in the '60s. Ryan, Shangela, and me, we are. It directly links to us and the freedoms that we have today.
Yeah, and Eureka, you said something really powerful in that episode about just educating yourself and taking that time to have this moment to educate yourself, right? Talk a little bit about that. What was your experience in Selma and seeing, your sisters really go through this and just having that experience?
Well, it was emotional because I just love Bob and Shangela so much. Like, even talking about it, I get a little choked up seeing Bob vulnerable like that because he's just such a strong person in my life. It was so sweet to watch and to be a part of, to see the love amongst these people. Not sweet, the stories were horrible, but to see the love that still resonated in the hearts of these women that fought so hard and been through so much, and the love that they showed my friend, that they didn't know from Adam, but they could culturally understand and feel that pain and understand where he was coming from. It just really brought a lot of joy and understanding to my heart. And it was definitely an episode where, as a white person, it's my responsibility to be there and be supportive to my sisters that are of color and that are experiencing this experience so differently than myself. And I just wanted to be supportive any way I could and, hold, Bob's hand if I could in the moment, or one of these young ladies, like, let them know that I'm here to love you, right? Or to just listen and understand. And that's what I think you do when you're trying to educate yourself, is just sit and listen, and let yourself be educated versus pushing yourself to the front. Which is something I really tried to do this episode, was sit and listen. I think that's what a lot of us need to do in this country. And I had the honor of doing it with these people.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I'm so happy I got to talk to you all about this episode, because it was wonderful. And another thing that I think really was important in the topic of that was kind of streamlined through this episode was visibility, and how it is important for representation, right? And I also think about how that can also come with danger of being on such a huge platform in these small towns. And I can't help but think of Aquila. I was wondering, how do you all kind of how do you all think about that from a storytelling perspective, Stephen and Johnnie? And is it important for you all to follow up and keep in contact with these folks to be like, oh, well, you shared your story with us, we want to make sure you're also okay, right? Because that was Aquila's worry.
I mean, it's a struggle. That story, it is still a struggle for Aquila. I mean, it isn't, this isn't a fairy godmother show where we're going in and keeping people safe. I mean, that's a very real story. Aquila, is very brave and putting herself out there in her community. That's, that it maybe isn't the safest place for a trans person of color. And, what we do have, and when we do cast the show, is right at the foot of the Edmund Pettus Bridge is the Nights and Orchids organization, which is a safe space for queer people and helps building, I think, in particular, resources for the trans community in Selma. And having that institution there makes us comfortable that we know Aquila does have somewhere to go. And actually, it is highlighted in the episode. And that across all of our episodes is an important point, that we do try to ensure that there is some place, safe for them to go within that community. If it's whether it's a person. When some of these organizations are really small and they're just starting to grow, and highlighting them through the show is important, because we want them to grow. I think this is what we've fought so hard in New York and LA and in these big cities, and look how beautiful our queer community is flourishing and thriving, and we're able to celebrate each other often every weekend. That isn't the case in these small communities, and I think it's really important that they are surrounded by some organization of safety.
And I think one of the things that happened at the end of shooting that episode, Johnnie and I were walking back to where we were staying, not far from where we shot the drag show, and it was really late at night, and I got a text with a photo from Aquila, and it was a picture of Aquila and her boyfriend, and she said, "I just want you to remember me." And it's like, how could I not remember her for the rest of my life? I mean, she is so special to all of us. And there are no words to describe, you know, and the same thing goes for, you know, so many of all of the drag kids that we've had the privilege of getting to know over the course of this season, last season. And I have to point out, I mean, Joseph, you know, what Shangela's story with Joseph was so powerful because
yes,
very brave to talk about what happens on the DL. And that, you know, I think Shangela really was able to just find vulnerabilities and accessibility inside of Joseph that just made the story beautiful.
Shangela is Oprah, in my opinion. She was giving real Super Soul Sunday in that episode, and it was wonderful.
Well, you know what? The biggest thing about it, and I think that, you know, in watching the show, and because when we film, we don't get to see each other's individual interactions with the drag daughters, Bob and Eureka. But I think one thing that all of us do really beautifully is we realize that we have to be open and honest and authentic and vulnerable with our kids so that they feel comfortable doing the same with us. They feel safe. And for someone like Joseph, who's amazing and so sweet, but had gone through this very traumatic experience in his life, he had put up a lot of walls. And I knew going in there that I wanted him to know that I was a real, authentic person that came from a small town, that he reminded me of so many of my friends. And Ryan, I bet he reminded you of some of yours too.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I was like, I know that story.
Everyone was like, and me going in there, I remember people were telling me from the crew, like, oh, he's going to be very, you know, shut off and everything. But I think that we just understood each other quickly when we met. And all of a sudden, he allowed those walls to come down and him to really be open and sharing with me his concerns about owning all the parts of who he was, whether it was at work or with family or trusting a relationship again. And through that journey that we had together, we became, you know, both two honest people having honest conversations, and him sharing that powerful story that I hope so many people will be able to see and draw some type of inspiration from to really own the parts of who they are.
Yeah, and I know
I want to
Bob,
wish
you
a
wanted to
happy
add
belated.
something.
I want to say a happy belated birthday to Akila. I love her so much. It was her birthday recently, and you know she really has the spirit like of Venus Extravaganza. There's something about her that is very Venus Extravaganza, but I feel like we get to right a wrong there and make it even better with Akila. I mean, she is part of arguably the most vulnerable group we have here in America, which is visible Black trans women. And a big part of her wanting to come on this show and tell her story was she was just sick of living in the shadows. She couldn't do it anymore. And she said, and she kept saying over and over again, you know, I'm doing this because hopefully the next Akila living in Selma won't have to experience what I went through growing up. And especially what Joseph went through with his ex and a lot of their friends in common. They even had other friends who we didn't have time to talk about in the show who you know, the DL scene took from them. You know, it is a really scary part of queer culture.
Okay, so I really want to talk about Del Rio because I would love to know what was the most surprising fact that you learned about, you know, a city or the residents after visiting, you know, Del Rio. Do you have anything that comes to mind? Anyone can pop up and go.
The most, well, one thing that I was super shocked about was, well, just going there and realizing that a town that was not even comfortable saying the word gay, you know, they would a lot of times say, oh, I know someone here, he's like that, you know, not even saying the word gay or queer, anything like that, would elect an out loud and proud gay mayor of their town. And seeing the existence of Bruno, who represents so many amazing and great things about our queer community and who we can be in this world and how we can break down the stereotypes of what other people think that we should be or how we should be just defined to one avenue in this world, and how we can, like I said, be a drag queen on a Wednesday night and a mayor on a Thursday morning and still be the same person, you know? So I think that was very surprising to me that he was an elected official, but he did it being authentic and true to himself and who he was.
Can I ask really quickly, when they gave you the key to the city, it was really interesting. I paid attention to the camera work around that room. And it was, like you said, Shangela, it was the people that voted for him to be there. But it also felt like, well, were they really accepting of just making that month Pride Month? Can you talk a little bit about that? Was that important when kind of showing the crowd's reaction while you were all up there, taking, getting the key to that city? Peter, was that something that you thought about when you saw that episode?
I'm very excited to hear you say that. I felt that in the room, like there was that tension in this town in general. There's plenty of good old boys and ladies, I'm sure, who aren't necessarily particularly comfortable with, as Shangela was saying, the idea of a queer person being out loud and proud, and nevertheless still did vote for Bruno. I think partially because he has a strong personality, he does. But I think for them, there was definitely in that moment, to me, being in that room, the feeling of, all right, well, I guess we got to put up with this for this 10 minutes, and we're just going to kind of, hold it in and keep a good poker face and let this happen, and then we'll get back to the stuff that we care about. Because it definitely has that feeling. I don't know whether Shangela or Bob or Eureka, you felt that in the room.
And I know Bob and Eureka probably have something to say as well. I just want to throw in here that in that moment, you're exactly right. It was a tense feeling in the moment at times, but at the same time, this is the feeling that so many of our queer brothers and sisters have in so many spaces across America, where they have to deal with a situation where people just feel like, well, they're here, so we have to deal with them. Well, guess what? We are here. And that's the name of this show. We're here. So they knew in electing Bruno that he was the best man for the job, period. No matter the fact that he was gay, they may not agree with it. Obviously, a lot of them didn't support it, but they knew in that moment that he was the best person to get the job done. And he has continued to show that he's the best person to get the job done. So with that, they just kind of, it's like us when we go into place, they may not want to see us drag queens there, but a lot of the people know that if the city is to progress, if the communities are to feel included, and if they are to really be about treating people equal, the way a lot of them say we're all about equality, then it's important for us to be there and do the job that we're doing.
I'm used to getting strange stares wherever I go. I dress interestingly, and I'm visibly queer wherever I go. So those eyes didn't really bother me so much. You know what eyes did matter a lot to me? The young people in the room who saw us getting a key to the town with a rainbow on the actual key, and their eyes lit up. And those were the eyes I was looking at. Those ones I was like, there was a big group of cheerleaders who were just like, I can like so excited to see us. And we're like, well, you know what's going to happen? Those cheerleaders and all those young folks who saw us and were lighting up because they saw us, they're going to grow up and be the next guard of that town. And then the next time there's a loop like this through, there's going to be less stares. And then their kids are going to be more accepting, and their kids are going to be more accepting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just like coronavirus, love is even more contagious.
Yeah,
You're right.
Bob,
I want to go ahead. No, go ahead, Eureka.
No, I was just going to say the exact same thing. I guess I'm so used to the negative stares that I get more excited to see the positive. So that's what I'm always looking for. It's like social media in a way where you stop looking for the negative comments, because if you look and you're going to find it. For me now in life, it's just like I just look for the positive, and it's always there. So it's what I pay attention to.
I want to say, even for me as a revelation making this, and this happened to us in the first season, and it's very much the genius of our 3 stars, and also just the concept. But there's so much that happens, I think, in the time that we're there, where someone might be on the fence or unfamiliar and uncomfortable because of that. But because of the work that Bob and Shangela and Eureka are doing, and because of our presence there, and because of that drag show, which people might just show up for because it's a spectacle, and then be surprised in this way that they end up feeling connected, that they end up feeling joy, that they end up feeling love. Like I'm a pretty cynical guy, but I feel like there is an impact that our presence has, and it's so much the ability of Shangela, Eureka, and Bob to disarm, to transform people's perspective, to go in there with that love and vulnerability. That, it's been really powerful and affecting for me, and I know for a lot of the crew too. And it's rare that you get that opportunity to say that, you know, you see an actual palpable impact pretty quickly from the, you know, production you're working on. But I think that's very much been the case, and a credit to all of you guys.
I got to say, one of the funniest parts of the whole episode for me, and it was also really telling, that this little girl could interact with Eureka in the way she did, that she had that gumption. She sort of knew what a drag queen was.
She got red.
He goes,
Yes.
oh, you know, hey, Walmart. And then, you know, Eureka,
Dollar Tree. I was screaming. I said, not Dollar Tree, Eureka.
Ryan,
Well-
you missed it. We had a full reading session. You can ask Mom.
Oh yeah.
This
And
little
I was like,
Eureka.
is she over there reading that little girl?
Eureka said, Shangela, Eureka is gathering that little girl like a chignon. Eureka gathered that little girl like a ponytail with blue magic on it. Eureka, I said, Eureka's babysitting. Eureka's
No,
babysitting.
girl, that little girl got me right together. The last thing she said to me, she said, well, sweetie, it's the makeup for me.
That's when I walked. I punched it. I said, oh,
I said, where is your mama and your daddy at? Where are your parents?
That's actually, that's like that was such a highlight to that episode, because I was just like, where did this little girl come from? And another highlight of that episode, Bob, your like, I guess mentee, what do you call them? Like your drag kids?
Drag kids.
Okay, your drag kids came out to their family.
Yeah, there was a period where I said, and I think you remember I said, there is not a snowball's chance in Del Rio that this kid will come out. And I was just like, it's a lot. I was like, you know, I've done what I've told SAO what I can say, and you know what will be. And I think it was actually maybe watching his sister be so emotional and vulnerable and saying how much she wished that she could share this experience with her mom. And then when he finally did, I was blown away. I would have never thought in a million, because he was not vague about being like, I'm absolutely not coming out. He in no unclear words was he like, Mary, it's a no for me. You know?
Yeah.
Well, and you think of even what wasn't featured. I think his parents, you know, drove. I mean, we were like delaying the show because so they could make the show.
They needed to get
driving
COVID
from
tested
Mexico.
and all this stuff. Yeah.
First of all, they looked like they were having a party. His mama looked ready to go. Like she was, It was just so wonderful to see, and you could feel that energy. Now we're wrapping up this conversation, and I have to get some tea. What can everyone tease about the rest of the season without any spoilers?
Well, I don't want to spoil anything, but the show is so transformative that Peter's gay now. I'm kidding.
About time.
And he's already taken boys. Sorry. No. I'm really proud of the way that we the casting on this show. I'm so proud to be a part of a show that is so inclusive with its casting. And if you thought the casting in season 1 was major, Mary, wait until you see season 2. This I'm telling you right now, this is the best drag on television. This is not this is my opinion. You know, what did you say? It's my opinion, but it is my opinion. And this is some of the best drag on TV. And it is also some of the best storytelling. It is some of the best camera work. It is it is truly remarkable. I could not be more proud than I am to be a part of the show.
Mm-hmm. When I tell you that the drag participants, our drag kids, they committed this season to not only being so open and honest and telling their stories and sharing them in a way that I think people from whatever walk of life you're from can be touched by watching the show. But also when we get ready to produce a show at the end of every episode, honey, they showed up to work. And I mean, coming into the rehearsals, this is their first time doing drag. And this ain't about just putting on a wig and some makeup and a dress and ditzing around, baby. You came in with Bob, Eureka, and Shangela. Therefore, we are putting on a show. And if you want to see a show, baby, then you go over to the HBO Max and clock that we're here season 2, because it's going to be a show.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I can add to that is This show is more than a queer experience. It is a cultural experience. There is culture in the performances, the people, the area. It's transformative of cultures. It's also exposing culture. It is just a cultural experience of potential queer, non-queer, straight, etc. And I'm just so excited for anyone to get to watch it. And like Bob and Shangela both, I'm also so proud to be a part of it. And y'all are gonna die when you get to see the rest.
And I will say, if you want the opportunity to see Bob, Shangela, and Eureka put in drag in situations they never thought they would be in drag in, and very uncomfortable about it, but looking amazing, watch the rest of the season.
Yeah, exactly, Peter. That's it. You want to see us on the side of rocks and buildings and scaling things?
No, but here's the thing that I wish we had more time because the outfits this season, woo! Insane, but everyone will just have to wait to see. I just want to say thank you all so much for joining me for this conversation. It was so wonderful.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Of course. And oh my God, I love you all so much. Thank you to NewFest and HBO for having me. And make sure to tune in to the premiere of We're Here Season 2 on October 11th. What a way to celebrate National Coming Out Day, by the way. I'm Ryan Mitchell. And you can keep up with me at the Slay God all over social media. Bye, everyone. Have a wonderful night.